Hello, everybody. And today I'm joined by Joe, the True Geordie's editor. Is that right?
That is right. Yes, I've been True Geordie's editor for about 4 years now. I think coming up to this year will be the fourth year. Feels like a lifetime. Like I honestly don't remember a time before I was working with Brian. Yeah, so it's been a while.
So, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, honestly. I've had a couple of days off. We had a very busy December, and January is a little slower. So we had Louis 3 on the podcast the other day. So we got that out. We were doing the clips for that. So yeah, today's sort of like a bit of a relaxing day, which is honestly like quite rare, but that's how it goes.
So, so, is is it mandatory that everybody that works with Brian True Geordie gets to get to feel the beats, headphones?
No, no, it's not mandatory. I think I'm actually one of maybe like three that's got them. So when he gave me these the day that he got his. So I think Beat sent him like 4 or 5 pairs. Lawrence didn't even. Well, I think Lawrence got his, but he gave them away on the charity event. I was like, nah, I'm taking these. Yeah, I love them. My favorite part about these Beats isn't that. Well, the headphones are great, obviously, but I think the best part is the box they come in. So this is the box that they come in. It's like I don't know if these will ever go on like public sale, but they're such nice headphones.
Uh,
Yeah.
I like the True Geordie logo. Who designed that? Was that you? Was that just
No, no, it wasn't me. So I went through a few iterations. See, Brian is someone that likes things being premium, as we'd say, and we had like an early True Geordie logo, which is a little bit more cartoonish, and then he always liked that old English font, which is what the True's written in. So I think we went through a designer and got that made.
I've, I've forgot to say it's probably one of my favourite logos out there at the
Oh,
moment.
thank you. Yeah, yeah, because obviously, I mean, there's a lot of logos on YouTube. Some of them are really good and stuff, but it's quite I would say like a mature gothic look, which sort of matches the. What I like about it is it matches the sort of look of our studio, which is a very gothic, rustic sort of place. If that makes sense.
And I also think it fits Brian's personality. Like it's very like wild in the sense, in a good way, of course.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the way we had a guy called Rob, who's a great graphic designer. He's designed our sort of new intros that come in saying a True Geordie production with the writing and stuff. I love that. Whenever I put it into any edit, I'm like, that's so cool.
So going back to you, so what made you want to start getting into editing?
See, it was weird because YouTube for me wasn't something that I really wanted to go into. I actually wanted to go into film. I did a film production course in Blackpool, where I'm originally from, and I wanted to go into film industry. I wanted to direct. You know, I looked up to people like Quentin Tarantino, Martin Scorsese, great filmmakers, Jean-Luc Godard. I was obsessed with film. I was a cinephile, for lack of a better term. And what actually got me into YouTube was Will and E, and that's because I don't know if you've heard of Blackpool Grime Media. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that all started with Afghan Dan, Little T, So Fast, and Millie B. That all started in Blackpool before it became famous everywhere else. So I was involved. I wasn't really involved with Blackpool Grime Media, but obviously I knew about it before it blew up. And then Will and E made his video on Little T, and I was like, this is hilarious. So then I became friends with Will because when Will was sort of very he was obviously growing at that point, but he was still sort of like quite low, sort of in terms of subscribers. So I ended up bringing Afghan Dan to meet Will and E because through the boom of Blackpool Grime Media, I saw that as an opportunity to work closely with Afghan Dan. And I got him to meet Will and E. So then that entered me into this world of YouTube. Basically, I was a fan of YouTube years before, but this was the new age of YouTube with like True and Will and E, Stephen Tries, Memeless, you know, all these guys became friends of mine, which was great. And editing, obviously, is something I always did at uni. I always wanted to edit my own projects, and it was something that I never really thought was for me, but it was also something that I always wanted to do. So on any project I did, obviously I wanted to direct it or whatever and shoot it, but I always insisted that I edited it, but I didn't really know that I wanted to edit, if that made sense. Yeah. So that's how I got into editing, really. And how I got in touch with Brian is how did I get in touch with Brian? Oh yeah, obviously Will. I was a fan of Will, so then Will went on the podcast, and I watched an episode of the podcast, and I was like, this podcast is like hilarious. So I spent my entire time throughout the first year of uni just binge watching the podcast, like when I would cook, when I was like on my own. Sorry, when I was on my own, like in my room, because I was away from home. I moved to London for uni, so I was miles away from home. I would prefer to sort of stay in my room and stuff rather than go out and get drunk for the majority of the time. So the True Geordie podcast for me was a way of sort of not being lonely and stuff. And then he asked for editors a couple times, and it was the final time where I applied, and he messaged me and he was like, yeah, I like your work. So we worked on a documentary called Conor McGregor documentary. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Yeah, cause I remember that. He did like a load of them, didn't he? He did one for Kanye West and people like that. So I remember that one.
Yeah, so that was a new series that Brian wanted to start. I think we only did 2 in the end, so because there's so much work. Like I came in and I really wanted to impress him, because at first I don't think he was that keen to hire me. And the reason I say that is because I applied, but I was in Blackpool at the time because I was back for uni and I was broke. I had no money whatsoever. Like I was in Blackpool looking for a job to have over summer. And then he said to me, okay, great. I like your work. Because I sent him over a documentary that I made. He said, would you be able to come this Friday to pick up footage at our studio? And I was like, no, because I'm in Blackpool, but I can come on Monday, because by that point I would be able to get the money and come down. And then he goes, it's not ideal. And then he like blanked me for like a week. And I was like, oh no, like I've ruined this opportunity. So I said, what I need to do is I need to do something that makes me stand out to anyone else that he's speaking, anyone else he's sort of considering for the role. So I ended up putting together a little trailer based on what we'd spoken about, because we had a brief chat before that about his idea for the documentary. So I made like a True Geordie Life Stories Conor McGregor trailer that I sent him, and then he replied saying, you've made your point, I'm going to go with you. And then he let me have the few days where I needed to come down, and then the rest is history. We did that documentary, and I think it's on 5 million views, something like that now. It's insane. It's actually, funny story, I've never ever made another video that's topped that in terms of views on the channel, ever.
so always start your best work.
Yeah, exactly. Never topped it.
And then once you're in the door, you can always rest on your morals.
I know. So, obviously, I've made so much more better stuff, but yeah.
So I can't remember in the order that they were. But did you also hand in the Kanye West documentary that way before you came on board?
No, yeah. So it was the Conor one first, and then the Conor one was a big success, and then we had plans to do Kanye. We actually had the research done. I don't know if I'm to say this, but we did the research for an Eminem one. Now, if we ever bring it back, I think Eminem would be the natural next. Conor McGregor one was first, and it was a big success. And I'm not sure I'm allowed to say this, but I know that we were planning to do an Eminem one. Like we had the research done to do an Eminem one, but the Kanye one was over. How long was it? It was an hour and a half long, and these weren't like quick edits. These like the Kanye one, I think took me like a month to do. So if we ever bring it back, potentially an Eminem one, yeah. But it was Conor first, and then Kanye, and then we stopped the series.
Maybe you could do it. Maybe you can do a short version where you can just have a couple of bits and then you can have an overall discussion about it. I mean, I'm just throwing stuff out there, but maybe you can do something like that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Actually, that's what Brian has said in the past. Like he does want to bring back the true life stories aspect of him just talking down a camera, talking about someone else's life, like someone he looks up to. So yeah, I think he wants to do that. That's potentially one in the future, but I mean, we've got so much stuff going on at the moment. I'm not too sure when that will happen.
Yeah, you've definitely got a lot going on week to week. Obviously, a lot of weekends you have to kick off. So what are you doing? What are you doing that role on the kick-off show?
What do I do on the kickoff? Yeah, actually, not a lot of people know what I do because we've got a full team of people that work on the kickoff. We have a director, a technician. We've got runner, a producer. You know, my role on the kickoff is basically as the show's going on the live show with everyone around the table, I clip up the highlights live. So I'm in the back, and as things are going on, obviously we've got someone making time codes, and I'm doing the highlights. So as soon as the kickoff finishes, we have a highlights package ready to go out, which is great in terms of like getting views in and stuff. But the problem is, and I've got better at this over time, but I'm not a football fan in the slightest, bro. Like you know me, and I know you're an MMA fan and a fighting fan. I'm a massive fighting fan, but when it comes to football, bro, I know F all really. So, but obviously over time, I've worked on the kickoff for 3 years now. I've gained a somewhat of a decent understanding of football, enough at least to know what's relevant to keep in highlights and what's not. I could probably tell you the manager of the top clubs or whatever, and a few players from each club, but I don't watch football casually. So yeah, it adds a layer of difficulty to the role, to say the least.
So, do you know you editing the clip? Do you know? So do you know when? Do you know when? Do you know? Do you know? Do you know when they? Do you know when they? I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to word it. When they, when they, when they are slightly, when they have a slight dig you on the show, are you actually listening to what they're saying, or did somebody else say that a couple of minutes later? And
When they have a slight dig at me on the show.
well, well, when I say that, I mean I obviously mean in a joking manner, but because you're busy editing, are you actually listening to the show at the same time?
No, so it depends. It depends what it is, because obviously, if it's like a clip, and I know it's a clip that's separate, which happens later. So, for instance, say they're in a debate talking about Newcastle, and the game that we're watching is Chelsea versus Liverpool. I know that none of this is relevant to the highlights that I'm going to do. So then I'll listen to the show live and wait for the next moment. But usually, I'm always behind. So everyone in the gallery will laugh at something, and I won't find out about it until like 2 minutes later when I see it on the not 2 minutes, maybe like a minute later. Yeah, the software that we've got to do that though. Shout out to Alex. I'm not sure if you know about Alex, but Alex is like one of the main sort of brains behind the kickoff. The guy is an absolute genius. Like he is like the best sort of technical mind I think I've ever met in my life.
I I get I genuinely put that in you, so that's wrong then.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. Usually I don't get that much grief on screen. Usually the grief I get is off screen. When edits aren't right or whatever. Me and Brian, generally, man and Brian's relationship is good, but we've definitely had disagreements on things before, and things have definitely got, but that's what all good working relationships are. If everything's all great all the time, then it's not, it's not ideal. It's not realistic.
I personally think it's really bad. They're all positive or all negative working relationship. And obviously, you want to be able to be honest with one another, but you also want to be fair.
Yeah,
You know
exactly.
what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's something that Brian's really good at is knowing, he's very honest, like he's brutally honest about things. But that's also why he's got to where he is today, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, if I like MMA, I haven't had time to watch the whole Awards yet. I've seen that you're on a couple of them. So,
Yeah. It's funny because obviously it was the New Year's Eve, I think. Brian messaged me and he said, I want to do an awards video. Can you get the nominees together and we can shoot one, me and you, if you want? So I was like, yeah, that's good. So then I was sort of like half drunk on New Year's Eve writing down these nominations. And like, admittedly, there's some I forgot. Like, I remember I kicking myself for this, but for knockout of the year, I didn't put Corey Sandhagen's knockout of Frankie Edgar where he hits him with the flying knee. That is 100% a great nominee for knockout of the year, potentially even a winner. I forgot that off the list. And I thought we were going to shoot the video on January 2nd, but then I woke up on New Year's Day morning after drinking the night before, and Brian's like, yeah, can you be at the studio for one? We'll shoot the video today. And I was like, luckily I didn't have to do much research because I'm such a passionate UFC fan that I was able to sort of like talk about the fights without having to, do that much research. And we ended up recording like an hour and a half of rewards, expect it to be one big video. But then me and Brian sat down after I finished the edit and realized it's probably better if we split it up. So I think we've got 2 out at the moment, or 3 out, and we've got another like 3 left to upload, which I think going out. One's going out today. Yeah. But I love doing those kind of things. When me and Brian speak about MMA, it's great.
I think it's better to do them in separate videos, but obviously, and you get more, then you might get a lot of, because then you'll get a lot of more views and it'll keep people engaged. Because if you do it all in one video, people are going to be like, okay, I'm getting a bit bored of this life.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what we're going to try and do more of. There was something else recently we did. Oh yeah, it was a big another UFC video, but it was just Brian speaking to the camera recently. We had the same thing, like we recorded, like it would have been a 40-minute video. Then Brian was like, yeah, just split this into 3 videos. And it's better because if you're scrolling through YouTube and you want to watch a video and you see the time code and it's like, I don't know, Jorge Masvidal set to fight Colby Covington and it's 40 minutes long, you're less likely to click on it. But if it's like a Mike Bisping video that's like 4 minutes long, or Chael Sonnen, you'll definitely click and watch it because you think, yeah, I can kill 4 minutes, but 40 minutes. Like
that. My personal favourite one at the moment from the ones that obviously from the one that you've already uploaded, but I like the one where you had the round table, and then you had Brian talking by himself, and then you had Michael Bisping. So you got all 3 sides of it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, that was really fun to do. So I got asked to do that, obviously, to speak about the UFC Prime Icons. And the thing is, I am a relatively new UFC fan. So like when I made that Conor McGregor documentary, that's when I really got into UFC. Before that, I was a very casual fan. I watched the Ronda Rousey fights, I watched the Conor McGregor fights, but that was about it. I was more into boxing at the time. So when I was there talking about the Prime Icons and stuff, I had to do quite a bit of research before that to learn about, the career and keep it fresh in my mind of Anderson Silva and George St. Pierre and people like that who were big in the sport before I was a big fan of it. But yeah. I think it turned out to be a really good video in the end. Yeah. And Michael Bisping is him and Brian's chemistry as well is great. I don't know if you've seen the podcast they did together recently. Yeah, it was really good. What a guy.
Because they also did one when they were in the same location, and then they did one virtually. I think that was the playing
game.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Brian also went on his podcast, which was really good because Brian gets a lot of heat from the MMA fans for being a casual, but Brian's like knowledge of UFC is like really deep. Like obviously he's been watching it since the UFC was in its early days, so like the input that he provides is like really really good, and it came through when he was talking to Michael Bisping.
I would definitely agree that for me personally, my problem is I find it difficult to remember all the fighters name and out of the night. So to a lot of people, I come across as a casual fan, but I've been watching it since Tito shut it down as their second fight.
You've been watching it for a very long time then, way longer than I've been watching it for. But also, I know what you mean, obviously, about the casual thing, but being a casual fan gets such a bad rap. I know obviously you and I aren't casual fans, but people that are casual, it's not a negative thing. It's something that like the diehard MMA fans like to sort of plaster on people by basically saying, well, I like them more than you do. It's almost like when you're in school and you go, oh, I like this band. And then someone will go, well, name 5 songs by this band. And it's like, but what does that prove? That doesn't change the fact that I like the band, bro. You know what I mean?
And what people seem to be everybody started off as a casual. Like obviously, Ariel Hawali is one of the most influential people in MMA media with the MMA hour back in the day. But obviously, he was a casual at some point.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, what's the difference?
So it did really perfect. And I think social media and more specifically Twitter has really escalated that a lot.
Yeah, obviously Twitter as well. I mean, if you see some of the comment threads on Twitter, the problem is now I'm sort of I follow a lot of MMA accounts, so I see a lot of MMA Twitter, and I see, and a majority of them are great people, and obviously they're just passionate fans. But you do see that dark side where they just jump on people and have a go at people for having different opinions. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, one of the awards that we put out, we gave Jake Paul the knockout of the year, and people were like, some of the MMA fans and were going crazy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But it's all good. It's all fun and games at the end of the day.
Yeah,
There's a lot of good UFC fights coming up as well.
yeah. I'm really looking forward to UFC 70 with the main event.
270,
Yeah,
Cyril Gane and Ngannou.
yeah. I I I can say serial gun, serial gun. I just call him gun because for some reason I can't relate serial gun. Serial gun very
Serial
very
Gane would be a better name, to be fair. If he was called Serial Gane. If Colby Covington was fighting Cyril Gane, that's what he would call him. You don't call him nicknames for everyone. Serial Gane.
So a lot of time, I either have to say the person's surname or I have to come up with a sly little nickname for them that I can remember that and that can help me to remember their surname or their full name.
Yeah, I do the same. I'm really bad at remembering names. I feel bad because obviously my girlfriend brings a lot of friends around sometimes, so she'll go, "Oh yeah, you remember this person?" I'm like, "Yeah," but I have no idea. I can't remember. Bad at names, bad at faces, just awful at names.
You're you're not kinder than I am. You know, if I can't remember anybody's period, I have to say I'm really sorry, but I really don't remember because with media, well, I'm lying. You can clearly tell.
Yeah.
Like, going back to you, what was your childhood like?
My childhood was very good. So I was raised in Blackpool. I'm from an English mother and a Colombian father. They met because my dad was actually in the circus. So my dad was an acrobat in the circus and also a clown briefly. So my mom and dad met when they were in America. So basically, my mom went over to America when she was younger, and this was the time also pre 9/11. Like, well, it also when was this? The 80s. Not a lot of people went over to America. It wasn't like like Disney World now, where everyone goes to Orlando and California and places like that. It was much harder to get over there. So my mom goes over and she's working in a circus with a family, a Mexican family that she was she knew at the time, and then she met my dad there, who was an acrobat in the circus. And then they ended up just traveling America together, like when she was in her early 20s, just going all over America. Like pre 9/11, you could just go wherever you wanted. It was like you almost didn't even need the correct documentation or whatever, visas, all these things, wherever you wanted. It was like dream life, basically. And then eventually they had me in 98. And then I guess they were given sort of the ultimatum whether or not they were going to raise me in America or England. And I believe it was my mum's mum, who told my mum it was better to raise me in England. So my mum and dad came back to Blackpool. My childhood was good. Honestly, I had no problems. I have one younger sister who's 2 years younger than me. We got on. Obviously, we fought a lot, but I didn't have a bad childhood at all. No, everything was hunky dory.
So, how old are you?
No, I don't mind at all. I'm 23. I'm going to be 24 this year. So I'm still at the age where it's sort of like, I don't know. I guess I don't know what age you get to where you get embarrassed of how old you are and you sort of lie about how like, some people that are like 45, they'll go, "Oh yeah, I'm 42, whatever." I'm not ashamed to say I'm 23. I wish I was 21 still, but you know how it is.
Well, I'm 20. I'm 26 now, and obviously I still really enjoy my birthday, but I do think I'm getting I'm getting closer and closer to 30 every single
I
year.
know, I know, honestly. But the good thing I have is I'm surrounded by people that I work with that are all a decade older than me. So I'm like, I always feel like the young one. There's only one person who works on the kickoff. I don't know if you know Jack.
Yeah,
Did you watch the poker video?
yeah,
He'd be good for a podcast as well. So Jack is like, he's a genius, and he is 2 years younger than me. So he's the only one that makes me feel old. But everyone else, like, there's me and Jack, and then everyone else is like 30 plus. So we're like, we're good.
I,
If you're below 30, you're young. That's what I always say.
the, all these teenagers and young adolescents coming onto YouTube now, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It does make me feel quite old. Because as I said in my YouTube, my YouTube journey video, I started in 2011,
Really?
and I used to just speak about wrestling.
Yeah.
Cause
I had a few YouTube channels like growing up. Obviously, I was a fan of YouTube in the early days. So I don't know if you remember the likes of like Ray William Johnson and like Shane Dawson, early Shane Dawson, Fred, Smosh, Dave Days, people like that. And I had a YouTube channel as well. So like, but I just made sort of Shane Dawson-esque videos, I guess. Most of them were pretty bad, but
I've obviously had the name, but to be honest with you, back then I was firmly entrenched in the wrestling community, and I guess in a weird way I still am because when you follow a lot of people on Twitter, you automatically become in that community.
that's
So,
what's happened, yeah, with me on Twitter with MMA.
so I so on Twitter because I follow a lot of wrestling journalists and a lot of wrestling content creators. I'm automatically in the wrestling community on
Yeah.
there. I, I let me try it. If you think the MMA community, try the wrestling community, it trends
Ten times worse.
Yeah, sorry.
No, which surprises me because, like, you know, as far as I know, obviously, the thing is, I never really understood the appeal of wrestling until very recently. I was watching a streamer on Twitch and watching a WrestleMania, and I was watching it thinking, this is actually very entertaining. You know what I mean? Even though it's all scripted and things, it is super entertaining. Like I was watching one where Vince McMahon, his wife was paralyzed, and he was like cheating in front of his wife with his blonde girl, and then they get into the cage, and then the wife and then he's fighting with his son, and then his paralyzed wife then like comes back to like, you know what I mean? It was crazy. I was
Yeah,
like, what is going on? It was mental.
yeah, yeah, but going back to what you said about the MMA community, I can completely understand why it would be really toxic sometimes because the
Mhm.
wrestling community is exactly the same. And a lot of times I think to myself, is it really worth, is it, re- is it really worth being this toxic over, over wrestling? But then I have to realise that people get really offended over Game of Thrones.
Yes, I know. It's literally like, well, it doesn't matter what we argue or debate over. This is being scripted by people. So why argue over it? Doesn't make any sense.
Like with MMA, I can sort of understand because obviously two people having an athletic competition, so I can understand it. But at the same time, I even think that's a bit uncalled for. Like
Mm.
it's not deep.
Yeah, exactly. Just chill out. Just be nice with one another. That's the thing. I can't stand arguing online with people. It's something that like I know a lot of people that just love. They just thrive off arguing with people online, and I'm like, it's just a waste of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just be nice to one another.
Like Twitter was more relevant in 2011 as I was coming into the internet space, if you want to call it. I probably would have been cancelled like about 50, 15 times over.
Yeah, which ultimately means nothing. I mean, cancel. You know, I don't know if you want to go into cancel culture, but cancel culture for me is the dumbest thing in the world. It just means it makes no sense.
Let's be honest, unless you work for something like Disney or Netflix or something like that, it doesn't really matter realistically.
Exactly, and it's obviously the audience that you want to sort of pander to, I guess, or the audience that you have. There's certain YouTubers who've had like dark pasts that, well, not say dark pasts, they just had edgy jokes when they were younger because YouTube back in 2011, back in 2012, you could basically make jokes about whatever you want. And
Yeah,
obviously now certain jokes or certain words or certain, things aren't acceptable. So people are being cancelled for things that they did like 10 years ago, as I say, like 2011. And it's like people are allowed to evolve and change. You can't hold people to these sort of like standards of today when back then the climate was so different. And also in 10 years' time, it's going to be the exact same, where things that are commonly accepted to say now, in 10 years' time won't be. That's how I see the world going. That's how I see society sort of shifting, especially on social media, especially on Twitter. Because I see someone, like my girlfriend, she's way more sort of clued up to what's going on in the sort of like social media celebrity space. She'll go, "Oh yeah, this person just got cancelled," and I'm like, "Why?" And they go, "Oh well, they didn't say thank you to a bus driver or something." You know what I mean? Actually, in 10 years' time, that's gonna be it. That's gonna be the next thing people get cancelled for.
like yeah, I always look at I always look at the individual person and what that living quote unquote cancelled for, and then you have to make your own mind up whether you want to support the person or not.
Yeah, nah, I know exactly. That's how it goes. But I just hope that people can be more sensible about things and, understand that you can't just label someone a racist, sexist, transphobe, homophobe for the most basic things. I think people just like what I always think is people that cancel people do it as a way to reflect themselves being good. It's like I'm gonna have a go at this person because it makes me look better in the sense of like I'm not racist, so I'm gonna call this person that said he doesn't like the Oprah Winfrey show racist. It doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, let's move on to cancel culture is never a good topic.
I just think when you both said what you needed to say, it's a really boring topic. It's like a 15
Oh
minute
yeah,
conversation about it, and it just ends up kind of you either end up falling into a bit of fest or just say that everybody's too soft. And
yeah,
I just,
exactly. Yeah, I know what you mean.
so they did the you know I've always preferred to be behind the camera rather than in front.
I'd say generally yes, although I do like being in front of the cameras or more recently. I guess it's difficult because if you're behind the camera a lot, it's not natural being in front of the camera, and it's kind of scary. Like it definitely is scary at first. So my first real experience of being in front of camera, like properly for a full video, was last year during COVID, when Lawrence wasn't able to come to the studio. I filled in on True News, and at first I was like terrified. I was like, oh my, Lawrence is so natural, quick-witted, like such a naturally funny guy. Like even when he's not on camera, he's just so like that. And I don't think I'm that kind of guy. So like when I was sat next to Brian, like I was like, what do I say? What if the jokes don't come to me? And it's like it was very, very scary experience. Anyways, we do the first True News. It goes out, and I'm like, okay, I prepared myself whilst I was editing it for that whole week for the hate that I would get. I expected a lot of hate. I expected people to be like, "Where's Lawrence? This is so bad about Lawrence. He's so unnatural." Blah blah blah. And to my surprise, all the comments were really good, and people actually really liked me. So that gave me a confidence boost. And then obviously, I've done it so much now. I've been on a few of the live streams and things. I could never go on a kickoff, but the knockouts and things like that, I do love going on those. So to answer your question about do I prefer being on or off, right now I think it's a bit like here. I think I probably prefer to be behind the camera a little bit more, but it's sort of like 60-40. Yeah.
But, but, let's say for example, if Brian came to you and said, I want to do an MMA show, me and you, yeah, I would imagine that's something that you would be interested in on a personal level.
Yeah, I think I would be interested in doing something like that, and I think that's something that we're going to be doing more often. Because I like for something like MMA, 100%. If he came to me and was like, I want to do like a weekly sort of like a True News kind of show, I'd probably be a bit more like, well, it's probably better if you and Lawrence do those kind of things because you're better at doing that than I am. But if he came to me, as you're saying, and said we'll do an MMA show, then yeah, I would definitely be game to do that.
I said this to Lawrence and I had him on like a year ago, or it might even be longer, but anyway, I said to me personally, I don't have the right personality to be on to do a True News show because at the end of the day, I don't really care enough to make sly little jokes, jokes and everything like that.
Yeah. I think you're more, you're kinder, I guess, than like Lawrence and Brian are in that sense, because you do have to have an element of ruthlessness when you do a True News. You know, you've got to sort of almost, I don't want to say dehumanize the people, but you've got to sort of forget that. This sounds so bad, but like you know what I mean. Like you've got to pretend. You just got to focus on being funny. You can't be empathetic in that sense, you know. And sometimes it's got like it's gone. You know that it's gone bad in the past. But
Yeah.
you're sort of more straight laced. I think you're sort of more kind to these kind of things, and I do agree. Like I think you're better off at doing what you're doing right now.
Like don't get me wrong here. If somebody said something or somebody did something that really annoys me, I'm quite happy to call them out. Like just very quickly, you know when Lawrence and Brian and that whole controversy, if you want to call it that. Like the soccer, that really.
You mean the Clash of Creators?
Yeah, I always call it the wrong thing all that, but that whole thing really annoyed me at the time because I just felt there would just be the dick, which would be the dick. Like,
I understand. I mean, obviously, that was at a time when, as I mentioned before, when you're on a show like True News or things like that, when you're making, comedy videos, you're so focused on making jokes that you do sort of forget these people have feelings and things like that. And I understand, but like I can tell you hand on heart, like both Brian and Lawrence were making that video. There was no malicious intent behind that whatsoever, and both of them, it was a True News but live. I think it's all sort of over and done with that now, though.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because at the time, yeah, I didn't make a video on it, yeah, and for me, yeah, it did do quite well, obviously numbers wise and things like that. But some of the comments were like going way too far, and some of them were not even aimed at me. They're aimed at other commenters. So then I just decided I'm just gonna remove the video.
Oh, okay.
And it was getting really bad. But anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
So at the ever been a time where you or Brian look at anybody else about like a creative argument?
Has there ever been a time? Bro, there's been so many times. I'm trying to think of a specific example because there's been so obviously there always is. Generally, like we always come at things at different angles. But ultimately, I think Brian's vision on things is always what we're aiming for. because Brian usually has clear set ideas of how things are going to go. I obviously provide my input and stuff, and Brian does listen. He's not the kind of guy that will just be like, no. He likes the input, and obviously when you've got a creative mind like Lawrence involved in the process, then yeah. So the main example I can give you is the rebuild, the original rebuild. I feel like we all came at that at completely different angles, and that was what I call a creative. Like we were all like, none of us were all parallel. I guess we're all creatively parallel. And obviously it went out, people enjoyed it. I think it almost got like 1 million views. I don't know if you saw the rebuild. It was the original Gymshark documentary where Brian's getting back on track and stuff and learning to box. It came out really good in the end, but it was one of those where we all had like different creative ideas of what each of us wanted to achieve. But sometimes when it's beneficial to have that, because it brings new ideas to the table, and through conflict and through adversity, sometimes some of the best products can come from that, because you have to make agreements in certain areas, and then you end up with something that's new out of that. But yeah, we have creative disagreements all the time.
But just to be more specific, I think after read the time, after ever been a time where we had a heated argument and then you had to leave the studio or leave the office. And then come back later and be like, you're right, or
okay. No, I can honestly say there's never been a time where that's happened. And I think that's because I think me and Brian are both sort of level-headed, because usually these conversations would happen between me and Brian, because we're the ones that will sit there in the editing suite and go, and talk these things through. We've never had a heated argument. I think me and Brian both respect each other enough not to sort of take it to that level. We're both very level-headed people, and also neither of us are very stubborn, I guess. So we're not going to be like, no, it has to be this way. No, it has to be this way. And also, it doesn't get to that level because I understand as well that it's Brian's channel. Like, it ultimately, like, it's the true Geordie channel. I'm not going to be like, well, I appreciate what you're saying, but I'm not going to change it because I think it's better this way. Like, I've got to have a level of, it's your channel, so obviously I'll do it the way that you want it to be, even though that maybe I don't think it's the right way of doing it. And then you look back at it and you go, oh no, actually, you were completely right with how it turned out. But no, to answer your question, there's never been a time where it's been a heated argument where one of us had to leave the studio over an edit or things like that now.
Because I know, not obviously not with YouTube, but in normal everyday life, yeah. Anyone working with somebody on something, or if I want to do something but somebody invited me not to do it, because I'm a very emotional person, and sometimes I can get really passionate about something, and because I get really passionate about something, I can end up being a bit of a twat, basically.
No, but if you're passionate about something, then obviously you want it to be done your way, I guess. That's not being a twat. That's just being passionate. That's a good thing.
No, but sometimes it'll be over, so it's stupid. Like if we are in a debate, let's say for example, if we're talking about fighting, and sometimes it can get, we can both get really into our points of view, so it ends up becoming really heated.
Oh, okay, yeah, but I mean, if you're debating fighting, then yeah. I mean, I've never had a situation on the knockout or a thing like that where we've had a heated argument. But I imagine if we were arguing over something like that, then 100%. But also, even when arguments do get heated on the kickoff and on the knockout and places like that, there's always a level of, let's not get into a fist fight over this. You know what I mean? There's no need to like get aggressive with one another or take it to a personal level. Which is obviously what you get when you've got people that are sort of level-headed in the room. I'm sure, and there's definitely been examples of people going crazy over, arguments that start on YouTube with people on like live shows or whatever. I'm sure there's been times where it's gone to that level, but with us, yeah, it's never been like that.
I like it, and I guess because you've all known it, you're relatively long time. Like obviously, Brian and I have known each other for a lot longer than you and Brian have. But I would imagine that you've all known each other for a relatively long time. Like it's pretty hard to get. It's pretty hard to like properly annoy somebody to the point where they have to storm out the studio or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I think that would usually happen. Yeah, I completely agree. Like, we've known each other for so long that we're aware of each other's sort of strengths and weaknesses. So in our sort of our personality traits that may not sort of that may be like annoying to each other. So nothing surprises us about each other at this stage, and we also know where the lines are, when we respect those boundaries and boundaries. So yeah.
Like so obviously I can't remember if we have said this before, but do you edit the podcast? I assume you edit most of Brian's stuff.
Yeah, I do most of it. I think a good 90% of the edit. So I'll do obviously all the podcasts, the intros of the podcast, things like that. Whenever we do True News, I'll do the entire True News. The showdown, I obviously don't do the live show for that. I do the highlights of the showdown. Pain game, I do all that. Kickoff live highlights, I'll do that. The only thing that I don't do is the in terms of edits that go out on the channel are we'll have like kickoff shows in the week or the clips from the kickoff. We have a couple of guys that work with us on those. So that's apart from that, I do genuinely everything else. And right now, I don't know when this podcast is going on, but we're looking for more editors. We're looking for someone to bring on full time to help me out and for me to work with. So if you're watching this and you want to work with True Geordie, then go over to the True Geordie Twitter, because we're looking for people. We're looking for young talent editors to really flourish in the space. So yeah, that's one quick little plug there.
So obviously, when you edit somebody for so long, you sort of know what I'm basically trying to say is because you work with Brian for so long. I do it and like the obviously you know what he likes. So does that make it easier for you when it comes to editing?
Yeah, I sort of know what I know. Oh yeah, so I know sort of facial expressions that he will make on certain things where I know if that was a good take or if it wasn't a good take, or what he likes in terms of like the way that he presents things. And so there'll be certain lines as well. Okay, I'm just going to say it. When in True News, for instance, when it's just him and Lawrence, if Lawrence says something that I think's funny, I can tell from Brian's facial expression that he doesn't find it funny. So I'm like, I like that, but I'm only going to have to cut that now. Obviously, there's not that many times that happens, but I can, because I've edited Brian so much, I can read a lot from his facial expressions about certain things. Yeah.
And so you know when Brian pulled out, but yeah, obviously not the serious things, but when it's like minor things, have you ever thought zooming in on his face? Because I would imagine it's probably a really interesting look.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah, we'll zoom in on his face to get that, yeah.
Because yeah, I was find when you know somebody for that long, when you know somebody for a long time, you know when they feel uncomfortable, when they feel excited or whatever. So I would imagine it makes editing a lot easier.
Yeah. If you know someone through and through, and you can, and you've done it for a long time, it does make it a lot easier,
So what's been the longest podcast episode to edit?
There's been a couple. The Christmas podcasts are always very long. Like I won't be specific as to which ones. We've had ones that have been over 4 hours long, and then we'll go through and edit bits out. Like especially the earlier ones where they were just getting completely off their face drunk. Me and Brian will sit there because part of the process is I'll finish and edit, and before it goes out, me and Brian will sit together in the studio and go through it. And Brian's actually pretty savvy when it comes to the editing software, so I don't need to do anything. He just takes the keyboard and mouse, and he knows all the shortcuts and the things. He knows, like, obviously to cut bits out and things like that. So he will go through and make sure that anything that could get us in trouble or things like that, he'll cut out before it goes out. The longest edit actually. Are you talking about just about podcasts or just in general in terms of the amount of footage and what I had to provide?
I was mainly talking like, you know, when you have like special guests on or special interviews. That's what I was speaking about mainly. But you can, if you just want to do random video, that's fine.
Okay, so the longest video was the Kanye one. The Kanye one was an hour and a half long, but we shot about 11 hours of footage. It was 11 hours of footage, but it was an hour and a half video. Podcast, the longest podcast I think we've ever shot may have been David Icke. Do you know who David Icke, the conspiracy theorist guy? Yeah, and that was the longest one. That was the longest podcast edit I've ever done. But the podcast edits for me aren't too difficult, because ultimately all you need to do is line up the angles, and then I just sit through, and then I'll just press numbers as to what camera to go to. That's the easy part, really. The hard part is, but the better part for me, I guess the more creative part, is putting together the intros. And that's something that we do on our podcast that not a lot of people do, and I think it benefits. We put together the story of the podcast within the intro, and that's something that me and Brian will work together on. And then that'll get people excited to watch the podcast. So yeah.
My personal favourite at the moment, as of recording, it changes all the time, but we just speaking at the actual true Geordie one, not the playing and game one, because the art is separate, different podcasts, aren't they? So
yeah. Obviously, the paint games are never that long, really.
Okay. I swear most of them will be like over nearly 2 hours long.
Have they? Paint game? No. Actually, no. We had a really long one with what's his name? Teddy Atlas. Generally, though, an hour 20, an hour. Yeah, I mean, the longest one was the Teddy Atlas one. That was 2 hours. But generally, for me, an hour and a half podcast is quite a short podcast. Because on a True Geordie podcast, we'll usually shoot anywhere between 2 hours to 3 hours. That's sort of our time, and sometimes it'll go over 3.
Do you know the Atlas one?
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed it, you know, but sometimes as a viewer, how do I say? I got lost a little bit, but not in a good way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, Teddy Atlas is someone that if you really respect, I guess, like understand sort of what he was to boxing, you know, you'll listen to every word he says. But it's difficult if you know, because what he does do is go on tangents a lot. Great guess, but he does like to create these big. Obviously, Brian will pose a question. Teddy will then go all the way around the block with like a few stories, and then somehow found his way around to answer the question. But I guess that's just his style, you know.
And I would imagine if you have a podcast yourself in the back of your mind, you just treat like it's your own podcast, don't you? And you forget that for somebody else's stuff.
Yeah. What you mean when I'm going through the edits and stuff?
No, I mean, so like if I came on the True Geordie podcast, in the back of my mind, once I get comfortable, I would just treat it like it's my own podcast. So I might take half an hour to explain one story or whatever.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, this is the first podcast I've ever done. I've been asked to do podcasts a lot before, and I've always saved it because I either wanted to do. I've got a friend called Brody. I don't know if you know Brody TV. We had him on the podcast. Crazy Canadian guy. I love him, bro. He's one of my best mates, and he had a podcast. And I was going to do his, but I'd have to go to Canada to do that. I don't think he does it anymore. I was either going to do his or Brian's. If Brian ever asked me to do a podcast where we just spoke about our creative sort of like sort of what we're doing now, but get more, you know, he could potentially bring up things that I'm not remembering. I'd do that. So those are the two that I always reserved it for. But obviously, I had to go on the APE experience, the Anthony podcast experience. I had to do that. So my first one ever was with you, my podcast debut.
Well, I'm happy to take your podcasting virginity.
Yes, you've taken my podcast virginity. That's great.
You know, Lead showcase me on Trini. The way you used to edit me, you used to make it look a lot funnier than I actually have.
I think you underestimate how funny you are, Anthony. Honestly, you're a very funny guy, and it's also you have the best kind of comedy. And I always say this to my girlfriend because she's very similar. Sometimes people who do things unintentionally but are like super funny are the most funny people. And I think you're very much like that. So you'll do things like, I remember, what was one that killed me? It was when you were reacting to the Sidemen, I think. And like you said something about the Sidemen, but then realized, maybe it wasn't like the best thing to say or whatever. Like you just got a natural comic ability about you. Like, you know what I mean?
No, you know what you want? Because I know that I know the Sidemen. I'm like, hardcore fan. And I know to say everything literally. So
That was it. Yeah.
even on the actual client themselves, they don't really care. They don't really care. But I guess that's the benefit of building up a loyal audience. They would defend you when sometimes they don't really have to, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I know what you mean. Yeah. But yeah, I love when we featured you those a couple of times on True News. You know, what we do is we save some of the best ones until the end, and I think that you were always towards the end. Obviously with like food review and things like that. Yeah, it was a great segment.
But I come in and they started up talking about world news, and then you dipped into some of the most weird ones, and then ended up with a bit of comedic YouTube.
Yes, I know. True News evolves over time. We haven't done one in quite a long time, honestly, because to be honest, they are, of all the things that we do, that is the most. It takes me the most time. You know, it's a very complicated edit. It's True News in comparison to like the podcast and things. And we used to start off and we used to just do one every week and we just talk about whatever's happening in the news. And then it evolved because we realized it's better if you've got one main story. So say, for instance, KSI, potentially could be fighting Aston McBroom, Jake Paul knocks out Tyron Woodley. Something's happened with Shane Dawson or James Charles. And we'd always wait for that main story. And it got to the point where we were like, I don't know, it feels like we're making the same episode every single week. So I think right now it's on a bit of a hiatus, but it will come back eventually at some point, I'm sure.
No, the one thing I was saying, maybe it's gonna sound really awkward. Maybe you could do a series where you play and find 5 or 6 smaller creators that you really like. Maybe you could do a series like just going through some of the old videos and reacting to them.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. I think, there's some of the best channels on YouTube are the smaller creators. But I think generally some of my favorite channels have less than 100,000 subscribers or just around that, which is crazy to say that's a small creator, but generally that is sort of what a small creator is considered now, isn't it?
I did actually quite sad. Because if you go out in the real world, yeah, I think 2,000 subscribers or 1,000 subscribers to the average everyday person. That's seen as a lot of people. But when you think about the Cyclone or Jake Paul or Geordie that have over 1 million,
I know.
it can feel a bit disheartening sometimes. you just need to focus on doing what you do.
Exactly. And also, for me, I think YouTube has evolved in the sense that it's not so much of a subscriber game now as it once was. I mean, they used to celebrate people hitting 10 million subscribers, and a million subscribers used to be such a huge thing on YouTube. I remember back in the day when Fred, who was the first channel to hit 1 million subscribers, it sent this shockwave through the platform, and everyone was so excited about it. But now, obviously, everyone's got a lot of subscribers, but it's not as much of an important thing as it once was. People care more about sort of the quality of videos and that now. And obviously, YouTube's algorithm favors sort of the content and recommended and things like that. So it's not so much about, oh, we're going to push these channels to you because they're the most subscribed. It's less important now. So I don't think it should be disheartening to having I think, have you got 2,000 subs?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2,000 subs. Whether you've got 2,000 or 1 million subs, you can have one video where you just, you title it right, the thumbnail's right, and you could get like 100,000 views. You can get like 1,000,000 views. Whereas we will put a video out on TG Extra, which has got 300,000 subscribers that may not do the same amount of views. So, what I mean, it's YouTube's evolved to not care that much about subscribers.
Just a bit of a story. My when it comes to me, my problem is the thumbnail, because of my hand. I find it difficult to put together an interesting thumbnail. That's my problem.
Yeah. That's the tricky part. I think that's something that we focus a lot on. And back in the day, I was doing all the thumbnails of the channel. And I'm not really a graphic designer. Obviously, I'm savvy. I know how to use Photoshop, but we have a guy called Cam now who works for us and does all of our graphics, and he is a godsend. I'll give him the videos, and we'll give him the videos, and we'll say, Cam, we need a thumbnail. Say knockout of the year. We need these 4 people on it, and within like 15 minutes, he's got it back to us. And also the posters that he's making for the kickoff and things like that are just like the kind of things that you'd expect from like a BT Sport or like a big companies, ESPN, and he's providing them for us, and he's so talented. So yeah.
Because when I first started, you used to be able to just take a clip from the event or from the show and just use that as a thumbnail, if you know what I mean. Like, it's a big happened on the event. You could just take a screenshot of that and use that as a thumbnail. Now you probably can still do that to a certain extent, but obviously with a lot of these big corporations, because I'm always a bit hesitant to do that because obviously it's the part of their stuff, so I'm always a bit hesitant just to like copy and paste an image from the event.
Yeah, because obviously sometimes YouTube will has got a bad system where they'll like copyright strike even though they've not even checked the full video, so you can run into those problems sometimes. But you've had a couple of thumbnails, like good thumbnails in your videos. Like I remember you made, and I can't remember, I think you interviewed Flav. You had a good thumbnail made for that. Was it Flav? It was one of them.
I know what you're talking. If you actually did that for me, but my problem is if I'm asking somebody to do something for me, even if they say I can do this for you, I'm always a bit hesitant to ask somebody to do something for free, because I feel quite bad because they're spending their time to do something for me, basically for nothing.
I agree, and I've been in that position before where because before I started working with Brian, I would do a lot of things with other YouTubers, and I do it completely for free. But usually, someone that's offering to do their work for free, usually they would offer. If someone was coming to you and saying that I'll make you a thumbnail, they would offer to do it for free because to them you're a big creator. You're like got 2,000 subscribers. You've had the likes of Lawrence and people like that on your podcast, so they'll see that as an opportunity to sort of they can publicize on Twitter. Because I see a lot of people on Twitter that go, look at this thumbnail that I made for Anthony Podcast, look at this thumbnail that I made for whoever. And they like to publicize that so they sort of grow. So usually they have some other residual benefits other than being paid. Does that make sense?
I understand that in the back of my mind, yeah. It's not even the fact that they say anything. It's the way that I'm wired. that if somebody does something for me for free, in the back of my mind, I do think when they spend all of that time on it, I, I, and even if they say to me, I don't mind, I still, in the back of my mind, think like, but they spend all of that time doing that.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So it's a bit difficult.
Yeah, but as I say, you know what I mean. There's so many people that are desperate to get into the YouTube space, and the thing is, what is not really known about I guess the UK YouTube scene is it's quite small. Like the top dogs in the YouTube scene are all sort of like in London as like a friend, like they're all friends with one another. Like there's not, it's not like a massive pool of people. So people are just so desperate to get into that scene. So I know so many people that are, like they'll come to. I get messages quite often. People like, please can I do this thing with Brian? I'll do it for free. You know, because people are just desperate to get on that ladder.
I, what I realised here, going back to the concept side of it, I realised that that you that you don't have to, that you don't have to upload every single day. Because I used to try and upload every single day. What was happening was I was spending so much time on the videos, like going through the videos and making it all good. And sometimes I would record the same video 5 times over.
Oh gosh, really?
And obviously, doing that, it can really affect your sleep pattern. So
Oh,
I was getting any sleep at all. So now I just upload when when I've got something I want to say.
yeah, I think that's better. You know, you want to make sure that you get enough sleep. I learned that the hard way. I mean, there's some days, because the thing is, I just will just work through the night and not really think about it. And it never affects you in the night. So you can work through the night and it'll be fine. It's the next day that's the worst part. You know, you're thinking, oh, this is fine. I can stay up until 6 o'clock and get this video done. But I've got to be at the studio at 10. So I've got to set off at 9. So I get 3 hours sleep or no sleep some days. I go to the studio the next day and I'm just not operating at 100% because I've had no sleep. So it's very important to get sleep. Very, because otherwise you're not performing at your best as well.
And the reason why I've recorded 5 or 6 times, can watch you back? And then I think I could say that better, I could explain that better, and then I do it, and then something else goes wrong. Because I'm trying to create the perfect recording, yeah. And I realised that you can't do that. Like, everybody likes a bit of bloopers.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish we uploaded more bloopers on our channel.
But I would imagine that some of Brian Alliance's bloopers, they're probably not appropriate to put on the channel, and that's why the bloopers.
All I'll say is some of the best jokes we've ever had on True News on the podcast, we've had to cut. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say.
Do you know eventually do you think YouTubers will go over to something like OnlyFans? Obviously, there's always a negative connotation to OnlyFans because of the way it's used. But at first, it was supposed to be just a based platform that people could use, and then it got centralized.
Yeah. So are you saying would we ever go to a subscriber based platform like OnlyFans, like a Patreon or something like that?
Yeah.
Potentially. I mean, Twitch is sort of kind of like that. I guess people subscribe and they get sort of benefits from that. But I don't think we'd ever do majority of our content behind a paywall. I think Brian likes the fact that it's sort of open, that people can come and watch. Even the kickoff, you don't have to pay to watch it on Twitch, you know. But on OnlyFans, I think we have spoken before about doing sort of like a Patreon kind of thing where we like give people benefits, but it's not something honestly on the horizon right now.
Because I do think YouTube, because YouTube is good here, but I think there's so many restrictions on it now. Like you can't update, you can't do this, you can't do that. I understand it to a certain degree, but I do think some of the rules I understand why they're there, but some of them are blooming ridiculous.
I agree, and I also think YouTube is sort of building its own downfall in that sense because right now YouTube has no competition in terms of another platform. Well, you can argue TikTok, but in terms of what YouTube do, having sort of long form content, widescreen that people will watch on any device, YouTube don't really have a competition right now. But the more restrictions and the more things that they bring into it, which looks like it's becoming worse and worse as the years go on, then it's only opening the door for another platform to come through and take that spot. So I don't think it'll be soon, but potentially it's something that will eventually be the downfall of YouTube.
No, I don't want to go into this too much, but obviously, everybody's favorite wanker. Donald Trump is trying to create his own platform. I personally don't think it will take off like everybody thinks it will. But I do think for the short term it'll have a lot of interest. Because if the rumours are to be believed, there's going to be no filter on there.
Well, then there's also other platforms similar to that. So I don't know if you've heard of a thing called Parler. That's sort of more like a right-leaning conservative app that is sort of, I guess, the sort of the same thing what Donald Trump's trying to make with this truth thing. And there's been, other things in the past. Like I know Brian Roche from London Field tried to make his own version of YouTube that was very similar, called like the Freedom Platform or something, where he was able to, you can post whatever you want. There also has to be a layer of a limit as to what you can post and what you can't, because otherwise it's become, people will take advantage of that and then post all sorts. So there needs to be a balance found. I agree. I don't think that Donald Trump's new truth platform will take off. I think sometime in the future there's going to be a platform similar to YouTube where you can upload the guidelines and the restrictions as to what you can't do are lesser, and then that potentially could overtake YouTube.
Yeah, I personally think when it comes to the Donald Trump platform, whatever it's going to be called, truth or whatever, I think it will get a fast ride, yeah, but it will fall almost immediately. Because let's be honest, if all the governments around the world want to block a slide, they will do.
Exactly. And also, to be honest, I don't think Donald Trump's that involved in it. I think it's probably something that, how like we do brand deals, like Manscaped and things like that. It's probably like a group of people that have given him a good amount of money to just promote it and endorse it and label it as Donald Trump's new platform. I honestly don't think it's something that Donald Trump is that heavily involved in. I think he's got other things to worry about.
The only reason why I think it have a good start, if you want to call it a good start, is because people like Joe Rogan have already signed up for it allegedly.
Oh, so. I think you know more about this than I do. I've seen the Twitter headlines and I've read a little bit about it. But I didn't know that Joe Rogan was involved in it. But then again, Joe Rogan has a lot of influence over, especially this particular demographic. So he potentially could push a lot of people over there if someone like Joe Rogan's involved. But as I say, it's probably not going to be something to rival YouTube or any other social media, really.
Yeah. So if obviously you have not, I would imagine I'm not saying this, but if you could pick one person to come onto the podcast, they can listen to them and Brian or them and Lawrence have a conversation, who would it be?
My like dream guest for the pod?
Yeah.
Oh. You know what's funny? Like up until like last week, it probably would have been Louis Theroux. Oh wow, this is such a good question. I've never actually properly thought about this because a lot of the top people we've had. Oh, I know. Obviously, Conor McGregor, bro. A Conor McGregor True Geordie podcast would be incredible, and I do think potentially that could happen at some point because we're not 100% certain on this, but I'm about 95% certain that Conor knows who Brian is, and I don't know what his opinion is on the channel or whatever because obviously Brian's been honest when it comes to McGregor in terms of when he's done shit wrong, he's called him out for it. But a Conor McGregor True Geordie podcast would be crazy. I think I would love that. Yeah, that's it. My dream guest is Conor McGregor for the pod.
I would enjoy that if Brian with me and Souther and he didn't really have to mommy cuddle. McGregor, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I don't think he would actually. I think it's because it's already on record what he said about him. Like for instance, with Nile Ranger, he couldn't really mollycoddle him because it's been obvious what Brian said about Nile Ranger in the past. So when he had Nile Ranger on, he put it to him. He was like, "I think your stupidity is what led to your downfall," and things like that. So I genuinely believe, and obviously based on how I know Brian as a person, that if he did have McGregor on, there would be little mollycoddling. I think he would be straight and honest with him. And obviously it depends on when he comes on. I mean, the guy could literally be a UFC champion this year. Like he literally could, which is crazy to say.
I honestly, mate, I think time is slowly coming to an end because the game is always evolving, isn't it? And to be
I
honest,
agree.
when I watch him fight, it feels like we're still in 2017.
Yeah, and especially in that division as well. I mean, the lightweight division right now has so many killers. I mean, the likes of Chandler, Poirier, Oliveira, Islam, Beneil, obviously Tony Ferguson's still in the mix, and I mean, any of these guys has a good chance against Conor. But Conor potentially could get the shot this year if Charles Oliveira wants it. So Charles Oliveira right now is the champion. He's won his belt and defended it already. He has the call-in power to say, "I want Conor McGregor," because he knows that is the biggest money fight for him. So the thing is, there's some dangerous contenders in lightweight right now. And if I was Charles Oliveira, I'd probably take the Conor fight because all he needs to do is take Conor McGregor down, and that's it. And he's beating one of the biggest names in the sport. Charles' star power goes through the roof. His money goes through the roof as well because the people that would watch a Conor McGregor fight is way more than if he was to fight Justin Gaethje, for instance. But Conor McGregor has serious power, and that's the only thing. Charles Oliveira does get caught quite a bit, and honestly, if there was to bet on the fight, my money would be with Charles Oliveira. But I'm not ruling out Conor McGregor could catch him with something. And Conor McGregor's left hand, in my opinion, is harder than anything Poirier has. And we don't know how it'll be against Gaethje, but if we were to see Conor McGregor get a championship, it would be catching him with something early in that fight with Oliveira if it does happen. And I genuinely believe Oliveira will want that fight.
Yeah, I personally think it's hard to tell McGregor what's actually happened, what he genuinely believes. When he says my leg is going to be stronger because he got metal in it, I think that's the most stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life.
I know. He's quite delusional in that sense, isn't he?
And as we've seen, 4 people that combat and broken legs, often not the same. I mean, look at Anderson
Silva. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're completely right. I mean, we're going to see a completely different Conor McGregor the next time he fights. And and if he loses his next fight, he may just retire. He may just call it a day.
Because when George Oliveira faced Justin Corner, I think Corner was something stupid like, I think he was and down the odds-on favourite, and you could tell that was mainly McGregor fans. Because I think George Oliveira should have been the odds-on favourite.
Yeah, to beat
Poirier.
Yeah, I thought Poirier was going to win that fight actually, only because obviously the last time we saw Oliveira, he almost got knocked out by Chandler in the first round of their fight, and I thought that Dustin Poirier is more precise, is more of a precision striker than Michael Chandler, and potentially also possesses more power. So I thought that he'd be able to find the shots early on, and he did. And he found a lot of shots on Oliveira in the first round of their fight. But Oliveira has this weird way of getting dropped, but not getting rocked. So like Oliveira will get caught by a shot, get dropped, but then he will use being on the ground to his advantage. So the more that I think about that Poirier fight, the more that I think maybe Chandler didn't almost knock him out in the first fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's an interesting one.
I don't want to say he lowered him to full sense of security, but I do think he was in complete control, even when he did get knocked down, if you know what I mean.
In the Poirier fight, Oliveira in the Poirier fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And obviously, he was in. I've never seen him more. He was in complete control in the second round. I mean, Poirier gave up the second round in order to just survive.
My friend says the only one that could give Jon Jones trouble right now. It's somebody like Khabib if he wanted to come back.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. That's the thing right now. Oliveira has that the ground game, which is so awkward, but also so dominant that you would need someone with a foundation of wrestling enough to either stop Oliveira from taking them down, or at least be able to grapple with him on the ground. Now, I guess the best shot he's got. There's two people right now that I think I would put money on to beat Oliveira. That's Justin Gaethje, All-American wrestler. He can stuff takedowns and he's got power. It potentially could be similar to the Chandler fight in the sense that he would be just in his face the entire time, getting in the shots. Because Oliveira is not invincible. I mean, he's been beaten before. Islam Makhachev. I mean, he potentially. I think he'll be the champion by the end of the year. Islam. He's such a well-rounded, great fighter, and also he has that Dagestani. He trained with Khabib his entire life. Like he's going to be able to deal with Oliveira on the ground. I think.
I think Islam, once he wins the belt, he can be champion for as long as he wants to be if he's motivated.
Yeah, I mean, Islam. Did you see the way that he beat Dan Hooker? I mean, no one has dealt with Dan Hooker quite like that. I know that Chandler knocked him out, but to submit him so quickly in the first round of their fight, wow. Islam is underrated. I mean, obviously he's not really got the personality like a McGregor or a Gaethje or whatever, but I guess the casual UFC fan, the casual fan will sort of overlook Islam. But yeah, do you think he'll be the champion by the end of the year?
I personally do, and I think at some point it'll be. I think at some point it'll be. I think he'll be a champ at some point.
Really? What you mean? He'll go up to welterweight and take the belt there?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, right now it doesn't look like anybody's close to beating Usman. But what do you think of Khamzat Chimaev?
I think he got all the potential in the world to become the champion of that division.
Who? Islam or Khamzat? Khamzat.
Yeah.
Yeah, Khamzat. Wow. I mean, we did the breakout star video and we gave him sort of the reward for breakout star because he just makes everyone he fights look so. His wins just come so naturally to him, so easy, and also he's got the personality as well. He's got the look. He looks like Khabib, except a longer, lankier version. He's big for welterweight as well. I think potentially if he's fighting Gilbert Burns in March or April, and if he fights Gilbert Burns, the next fight he'll have is for the title. And I think Usman, he definitely doesn't. He shouldn't overlook Khamzat because if he does beat Burns, then he's a serious threat.
Why do you think that Francis Ngannou and his old war? Because with his own war against the UFC at the moment, obviously he wants to leave on face Tyson Fury allegedly.
Yeah, the thing is Ngannou, it's like, he does deserve more money, and I do think the UFC fighters do not get paid what they deserve. And Ngannou is obviously speaking out towards that right now, isn't he? He's basically saying, I'm not being paid what I should be paying to have these fights, so I'm going to leave the UFC and fight Tyson Fury. I think him and Tyson Fury are very similar personalities. They're both a heavyweight champion. They're both not being, they want their way. So I think I would love to see a fight between Ngannou versus Tyson Fury. I mean, if it's in boxing rule, I think Fury clearly wins that, yeah, all power to him. But I also don't think that he is someone that if he was to leave the heavyweight division, for instance, of the UFC, Dana White's not going to lose sleep over that, honestly. I mean, we've got so many exciting fighters in the heavyweight division, the likes of Cyril Gane, obviously, who I do think will beat Ngannou anyway, so I don't even see Ngannou being a champion for that much longer. Derek Lewis is so entertaining, he's knocking people out. What's his face? Tai Tuivasa, obviously the guy from England, Tom Aspinall as well. There's so many exciting people in the heavyweight division. Ngannou leaving would be upsetting, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. And I think Ngannou I guess he overestimates how much he means to the company, if that makes sense.
I can understand that because it's not like he's got Leicester or something like that back in the day. Like with Brock Lesnar, you could basically see even the UFC can at the time.
Exactly. Yeah, completely right.
My problem is with Sorry, yeah. I just think, yeah. Even though he's a good technical fighter, he doesn't really. To me, anyway, he doesn't really stand out as much as somebody like an Ngannou or anybody like that.
I think that's the thing. We're entering into a new age of heavyweight fighters in the UFC, and these heavyweights like Tom Aspinall and like Cyril Gane have the power, but they also have the tech. And you said before that the sport has advanced so much. Like these guys are technical strikers, which we've not really seen, and also super well rounded as well. Cyril Gane will take you on the ground, give you problems on the ground. He'll pick you apart on the feet. He will be elusive. He won't get caught with those big shots like Derek Lewis tried to get in with, and he managed to knock out Derek Lewis. So he's got the power as well, and he's able to stop people. And the thing is, why I think he'll beat Ngannou, even though Ngannou's got the heaviest shot, undisputed the heaviest shot in the UFC, is he's trained with Ngannou before, and he knows the weaknesses of Ngannou potentially. So, we're seeing someone that he's not going to be worried going into this fight, I don't think. And he's going to not, there's a lot of times, Ngannou has a kind of like the Amanda Nunes effect, where a lot of people are reluctant to do things because they are worried that he's going to catch them with that big right hand. Similar with Deontay Wilder. I don't think Cyril Gane's going to have that same worry, and he's going to probably show him less respect in order to just outclass him. Don't get me wrong, Ngannou 100% has the ability, has the power, and potentially could knock Cyril Gane out cold. But ultimately, I think Gane is just going to pick him apart for however long it is. And I think if he takes him down, I think Ngannou's ground game isn't great either. So there's clear weaknesses there for Ngannou, and so far I've not seen those beaming weaknesses in Cyril Gane. But yeah,
maybe because the last fight I saw of Cyril Gane, he was facing Derek Lewis, and Derek Lewis is not the best fighter in the world, is he?
Technically, no.
Great personality. If you could win the UFC title on personality, you would be a 3-time champ.
Yeah. You're 100% right there. He's the most entertaining, or probably one of the most entertaining fighters in the UFC. Yeah.
But in terms of technical ability, I'm not going to say it's very easy to beat, but it's very easy to work him out. Let's just say that.
I agree, but I also don't think that Ngannou is that technical either. And I do feel like as well, if we're talking about easy to work out, Gane's probably already worked him out. Gane already probably knows what he's facing against. You know what I mean? I think it was the first gym that Ngannou, because obviously Ngannou moved to a different gym. He no longer trains at the same gym as Gane, but they built the fundamentals in Ngannou, so they know what his weaknesses are. And I feel like that is going to play a part in Gane being able to work him out in the fight potentially.
And when you're like world champion, whether you do it on purpose or not, you are gonna get complacent on your skills, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think there's a lot of great champions right now in the UFC. There's only a few of them that I would consider to be sort of very well rounded. I think the most dominant champion in the UFC right now is Valentina Shevchenko. If you look at where she is in comparison to the other people in the division, I think she's miles out. I would have said the same about Amanda Nunes, but I mean, Jesus, she got knocked out, or she got submitted by Juliana Pena, which I did not see coming.
I personally think I did when the fight first happened. I did say Amanda would win the rematch. But now I'm not too sure because obviously when you have a child and you've got other priorities, whether the fighter will admit it or not, it's hard to get that fire back up. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Amanda Nunes is, but the thing is, when I was watching that fight, I didn't think Amanda looked herself, and I don't know whether it's you get to a point in your career where you've reached a peak and you're sort of going downhill. She's not fought in a long time, and especially not bantamweight. I can't remember. I think the last time she defended bantamweight was a long time ago. She's been having a lot of featherweight fights. Was it Felicia Spencer or was it Holly Holm? It was not. It was a long time ago. It's been over like a couple of years. Obviously, she had COVID twice this year, which played a part in that as well.
Yeah.
But you've got someone in Juliana Pena who was so motivated, who showed her no fear. She just walked it down, and Amanda did look great. And yeah, I mean, immediately after the fight, when they started speaking about a rematch, it's difficult to get that idea out of your mind that Amanda Nunes isn't just going to beat everyone. But yeah, I think I'm sort of leaning more towards Juliana Pena for a rematch. I agree with you.
I get why they talk about a rematch anyway, because that's what I have to do being the company. But I also feel like they took away a lot from Kenya's win. If you know, like as a company, do you know McGregor won the battle? The UFC was licking it off.
Mm-hmm.
But with Kenga, it almost came across what they were saying. Okay, but in the rematch, we'll have the champion that we want.
Exactly, and I think that's because the UFC, when they see potential in someone, especially someone as dominant as Amanda Nunes, they want to build a brand around them. So they were calling her the GOAT. I mean, I wouldn't even consider her the greatest female fighter of all time. I don't know where the GOAT nickname came from. Obviously, it made sense when she was just dominating people. But then if you think about it, they were calling her the GOAT. They were calling her the greatest of all time. They weren't even specifying whether it was gender or whatever. Like, they were trying to build a brand around her. And I felt when Pena beat her, they were like, can we build the same sort of brand around Pena? Because she definitely isn't as dominant as Nunes. I genuinely think Shevchenko makes easy work out of Pena. So, the UFC probably got scared and they were like, how do we do this? So I agree.
In my personal opinion, the best female fighter of all time is probably Chris Cyborg. If you think that how long she everything in, how long she was at the top.
Mm.
Even now, I know it's in Bellator. And people have their own opinion on Bellator, but at least she's still up there as probably one of the best fighters in the world.
I completely agree. And not only is she gone over to Bellator and looking good, she's knocking people out over there, And it's surprising why they didn't bring it back. I think the UFC have obviously had problems with Chris Cyborg, but it surprised me why they didn't run it back with Nunes. I mean, obviously Nunes just knocked her out in the first round, but I think I would have liked to have seen how that fight would have been if they would have done a rematch between those two.
And I felt the same way when Ronda Rousey lost. I felt the UFC was saying to the viewers, I would just look, don't worry, Ronda will get the back. Ronda will get the belt back. And she obviously completely got knocked out against Amanda.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you think about like a comeback fight, poor Amanda Nunes. Sorry, poor Ronda Rousey getting Amanda Nunes as a comeback fight. Jesus. Imagine that. Considering she went off the grid as well. She went off the grid for an entire year, didn't do any media, and it was meant to be like, she is back, the queen is back. She goes in and she just gets knocked out in the first round by Amanda Nunes.
I mean, Joe Rogan told the story that one of the executives that bought the UFC didn't even know Amanda Nunes' name.
It's so funny that. No, it's crazy. And obviously she was the one to beat Ronda, so that's maybe another reason why the UFC were trying to build a brand around her, because they were like, wow, well, Ronda was the best. Nunes hasn't been beaten since she beat Ronda. She must be the best. She beat Cyborg. She just left people, this trail of people being beat. So I do think the UFC are hoping that Nunes beats Pena in the rematch. She does have a chance to beat her. Obviously, you can't. It would be insane to write off Nunes. I mean, Nunes, she probably will be the favorite going into the rematch as well. But that's a super exciting fight, and I hope they put that on the undercard of the fight that was announced last night. What do you think of the Masvidal Colby fight?
I'm personally, me personally, I am looking forward to it. I am looking forward to it because of the history. But as a fight, I'm just not into it, to be honest, because obviously they both lost to Usman on multiple occasions. So it's like okay, you can't beat the champion, so we're gonna fight each other.
I agree. Yeah, I completely agree. I think the fight itself isn't the main selling point. It's going to be the build up around it. It's going to be the trailers. It's going to be the press conferences. It's going to be all that.
Because obviously they used to train together, didn't they? They used to be best mates.
Oh, they used to live together. There's like old vlogs on YouTube of them like hanging out when they were in the UFC, when they were like on the early prelims in the UFC, when both of them were broke, both of them were desperate to win fights just so they could pay the rent and things like that. These guys used to be the best of best friends, and now both of them are huge stars in the UFC. Masvidal, one of the top 3 stars of the UFC ever, and both of them have got loads of money, and they're fighting each other. I mean, it is literally like a Hollywood story, and I think the fight's going to be good as well, potentially because Colby's last 2 fights have been against what's his name? Obviously Usman. He lost to Usman twice, but then before that, Usman and Woodley. So both of those guys, not great strikers with a wrestling pedigree. Whereas Usman is a volume striker. So it'll be very interesting to see how Colby fares against Masvidal. Don't get me wrong, I think Colby's going to outclass him for the majority of the fight. I think he's just going to take him down. I don't think it's going to be an exciting fight. And I think Colby will get the win in the end. But I mean, bro, it's going to be it's probably the most exciting fight we've got coming up in the UFC. Yeah.
I'm a very weird one where I prefer to watch to complete to I don't know how to describe it, yeah, but with fights like this, yeah, I'm more interested in the build up than the actual fight, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah, I mean, the trailers that the UFC are going to be able to put together in the press conferences, it's just going to be great. And that's why I love the UFC. That's why I love the UFC, because boxing doesn't really build up these personalities in the same way. Like the fact that the fight was announced last night and everyone was super excited and no one had to do the pre-research. Everyone already knew these guys had beef. They've been trailing this fight for years. Even when Masvidal knocked out Darren Till, they were talking to him about things that Colby have said. The UFC is so good at building up these personalities, at building up these backstories and subtly feeding them to you through the press conferences, through the interviews, as opposed to boxing. When there's a fight, like for instance recently with George Kambosos and Teofimo Lopez, we had to learn everything there is to know about Kambosos, who came out of nowhere before the fight, or even after the fight after he won. The UFC are good at doing it beforehand and building it up.
It's because they're all under the one banner, aren't they? With boxing, you have different promoters and different organisations, and you get to the point where it's like, you get to the point where you're like, come on, I thought you were supposed to be smart businessmen, and the way that some of them behave, they're really childish.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, boxing is a mess at the moment. We've got so many belts. Like what I like about the UFC as well, there's one belt, one champion, one prize that everyone's looking for, and that's where it's clear where the rankings are and stuff.
And yeah. I know it's hard. I prefer MMA because 1 minute it could be a wrestling match, and then the next minute could be all out war, on the face.
Exactly. I know you never know what to expect, and styles make fights. Like there's something you can't write off anyone in the UFC. You can't. There's not really that many champions where you can go. Nobody gets close to them, and yeah, that's why it's so good. I mean, I love it, honestly. I'm so excited for this weekend. We've not had the UFC since early December. We've got one this weekend, so I'm excited for
that. Like, do you try and watch every single event that you can, or do you just watch the main pay-per-views?
So the main pay-per-views, like the big ones, I watch usually from the first prelim until the end. The fight nights and stuff, I'll probably just watch it until I get tired. Obviously, unless there's like a good headliner on, like obviously like the London one and stuff. But yeah, generally, obviously all the main ones, and then whichever ones I can watch around work for the others.
For me personally, I think the UFC one or two one or two many events. Like I understand there's not going to be audience for every weekend, but I don't think you need to. Sometimes I understand that I have over 300 fighters on the roster, but I do think they run one too many events.
Yeah, obviously the thing is though, they do run a lot, but also like there's so many fighters that they've got to like get out, and there's so many fighters that they've got to build fights for and stuff. And obviously people rely on it to live. I mean, they get paid, what is it, like 20, 25 fight. That has to last them like a few months. And once they pay the team and all the things like that, some of these fighters have no choice but to like get on these cards and win, you know. So I mean, I agree, they put on a lot of fights, but with the amount of people that they've got in the UFC right now, they don't need to.
But also, I understand why, if you're trying to deal with the UFC, why you're exclusively their fighting. I understand that, of course. But I also think for the less experienced fighters, they could really benefit from going outside the UFC and just collecting fights on their belt.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Yeah, you're completely right. Yeah.
What do you think, like, Conor Malik? For me, I think I don't think he's that good to be like. Yes, he gets highlight lockouts, but I just don't rate him, to be honest.
I think in terms of stylistically, I think he's a very good elusive striker, and I think that's something that in the bantamweight division is imperative in order to look decent against the top 15. Personality wise, he's got everything. I mean, he's got the look, he's got the swagger about him, he's calling people out, and I think in terms of a case study of someone who has been dealt with in the right way by the UFC, or at least navigated their career in the right way, he's probably the perfect example. And that's because he's not been rushed in the same way Darren Till has been rushed. He's only recently been in the rankings, and he's every single one of his fights prior to that has been on the main card, or at least most of them have been, and against people that no one's heard of before, the likes of Paiva, the likes of Matinho, the likes of I can't remember the guy's name, of the mustache one, he just knocked him out clean. Obviously he lost to Chito Vera, which was not, it was the nerve that got him. But I do think he's a great fighter, and I do think potentially he could cause problems for anyone in that division. I think that even if he fought Petr Yan, I don't think it's an easy fight for Petr Yan, and it's because he's so big for a bantamweight division as well. He's long, he's elusive with his striking. I think the one downside to him is his power, and the reason I say that, even though he's knocked people out cold with one punch, is because he had that fight with Chris Matinho where he was landing shots repeatedly on him. I think he broke the record for the most significant strikes landed in a bantamweight fight for 3 rounds. And, credit to Chris Matinho taking all those shots, but bro, you've got to put these guys to sleep with this shot, and you can't just land repeatedly and not knock him out. So,
that's basically what I'm trying to say. I mean, yeah, you got good hands. What else have you got that don't work? Like, have you got a ground game? Have you got any good kids? Have you got any good jiu-jitsu? Like, you know what I mean? Like, 3-1 dummy.
He is actually, yeah, you're completely right. I mean, it's similar to Conor McGregor in a way. I mean, all of his best work was done on his feet, and when he got taken to the ground, he, a lot of those weaknesses were exposed. I can't remember an example of when Sean's been taken to the ground and it's sort of showed that, because he's very good at defending takedowns and stuff, and keeping that distance away from his opponents and keeping them within striking range. But yeah, we don't know what he's like on the ground. Potentially, we could see that this year.
That's why I'm a bit hesitant on him, because I'm waiting to see what he does when they get taken to the ground, where they can handle it, or where he just basically gives up.
Exactly. I mean, that's what hopefully we see more of this year. I mean, the adversity against him, because he had the adversity against Chito, but he broke his nerve or whatever it was, or he fucked up his leg. So he's in the rankings now. So, he's not having easy fights anymore. Potentially he could fight some of the big names in the division now.
Would you put him in there with the veteran to see how he does? Obviously, you can't go from basically no name, with all due respect, to some of the top guys in the division straight away. I personally think you need to have a gap where you fight, where you fight, where you fight gatekeepers, and then build yourself up slowly.
I think he's got his eyes set on someone at the moment. I think he wants to fight Cody. And I know Cody just got knocked out by Kai Kara-France, but I do think that even though he got knocked out by Kai Kara-France and he's lost his last two fights, that Cody and Sean would be a good fight. And he is a veteran as well. And it would be a good one for Sean to show his sort of level if he can knock out Cody. Because, you know, Cody's not the same Cody as he once was, former champion. But I think it's a good gatekeeper, as you said. You're completely right with that. Like, it would be a good fight for Sean to show his sort of level and make a statement, I guess, in the bantamweight division.
Do you know the term gatekeeper? Do you personally think that's a derogatory term? Because I personally don't think there's anything wrong with being called a gatekeeper. It just means that you're better and you have to prove yourself even more.
Well, it's not even just veterans. I mean, I considered Derek Brunson to be a gatekeeper at middleweight up until recently, obviously, when he beat Darren Till, and now he's a title contender. So if you're a gatekeeper, all you need is one good fight, and there you go. You're in the contention for a title, you know?
A lot of these quote-unquote gatekeepers are always going to be there or thereabouts, aren't they? Because they're all going to be able to put on a good performance a lot of the time, and they're all going to be useful for the UFC.
Exactly. And obviously you've got people like Glover Teixeira, who is a veteran, who was considered by many people before his fight with Jan to be a gatekeeper. Even Charles Oliveira, both of those guys at the beginning of last year, you probably would have considered to be gatekeepers at the lightweight and the light heavyweight division. Both of them at the end of the year have belts. So I don't think
obviously Aldo's probably in the same category as well, in terms of like veterans that's still capable of winning, that's still capable of being UFC champion, in my opinion.
Yeah, obviously there's not too many of them. I'm trying to think of who comes to mind that potentially could win a title. I mean, do you think Jon Jones will actually fight at heavyweight this year? Do you think that will actually happen?
No, I've always said this. I like Jon Jones as a fighter, but on the personal level, scream basically. I would not care if I didn't see Jon Jones fight again, to be honest.
No, I agree. I mean, yeah. Also, his last three performances weren't great as well. I mean, against Smith, Santos, and Reyes, I thought he won. I thought he lost the fight against Reyes. And to go up to heavyweight, where we've got these, take a year out. His last fight was against Reyes, and that was in 2020, early 2020, I believe. So, I don't know how we'll look.
I mean, if he's struggling with light heavyweights, what's going to be like actual heavyweights?
Exactly. I know. We'll see how his chin copes against those, especially being out of the ring for so long. And who did he put him up against? Like, it's not as if he's going to go straight for a title shot at heavyweight, or will he?
I wouldn't be surprised because it's the UFC.
Yeah, they probably will give him that, won't they? They'll put him straight there against Ngannou or Garn, whoever wins the title. They won't give him any easy fights at heavyweight.
I personally prefer DC. Not only in the cage, but obviously outside of the cage.
Oh, me too. DC is one of the best personalities, isn't he, in the UFC?
But if I could interview one fighter of all time, it would be the DC, because obviously he went to lightweight, he went to light heavyweight, and then he went up to heavyweight, and then he came back down, and then he just did it all.
He's such a good guy as well. I mean, like, he's funny. He was such an amazing fighter. I remember when he fought Derek Lewis, the way that he just easily dealt with Derek Lewis.
Yeah,
I'll never forget the way that he just lifted his legs up, kicked his leg from between, and was it the second round? Got him in the rear naked choke, dealt with him. He's such a dominant fighter as well. I love Derek Lewis, and not Derek Lewis.
And I think his personality is really underrated because he didn't always call people out. A lot of people thought he was boring. and he's lovely. And I wouldn't say he's nowhere boring.
No, he's not boring at all. I actually miss him. Obviously, he's retired now. I don't think he'll ever come back. I mean, that loss to Stipe was hard to watch because I think he genuinely thought he was going to beat Stipe in that third fight, and then he was going to retire with the belt, and it would be this big thing where it was like, I retired as a champion. He'll go down. Obviously, he'll always go down as one of the greats, but he wanted that moment, and you could see how much it affected him when he didn't get that moment and he lost his decision to Stipe. Yeah.
I love it. I love him on commentary. I think
Me too. Yeah.
this is going to be a bit controversial, but I think in 2022, I think he's better than Joe Rogan. I mean, Joe Rogan still puts on it wrong. But I just don't feel like Joe's heart's it like it once was. I could be wrong.
And also, I think like DC adds an element of excitement as well to the commentary booth. Obviously, you've got John Anik, who's the big voice. Joe Rogan. What not annoys me about Joe Rogan, but why I prefer DC is because Joe Rogan likes to show off his sort of jiu-jitsu knowledge a bit too much. Like obviously he'll break down the fights, but he'll do it in a way that's almost like, okay, we get it, you understand fucking BJJ. Whereas DC is the fan watching it, he's screaming and stuff, and he's reacting in the best way, I think.
So basically, I feel like Joe Rogan went himself up quite a lot on comedy.
Yeah. Which obviously, he's been doing it since basically day one of the UFC, so I guess he has the right to do that. But it gets a bit annoying times.
I mean, the best way to describe it, when a teacher tried to tell you something, and clearly, clearly just do it to show off how good they are. It's like that with Joe Rogan. With DC, it feels like the teacher that take the time to explain it to you and actually write it down why it's important.
Yeah. No, he definitely, that's basically the perfect way of describing him. I mean, exactly like that.
Do you think it's just because Joe's so comfortable and DC still got something to prove as a commentator?
Potentially. I mean, obviously, Joe Rogan's doing it for so many years that he's sort of like comfortable in his style. Whereas even Daniel Cormier, yeah, you're right. I don't know if he's got anything to prove, but obviously he's come into criticism recently from Dominic Cruz that said he doesn't research the fights and things. I don't even think Joe Rogan, is clear that he doesn't, research all the fighters and stuff. And but people let him off because he's Joe Rogan. Hardly anyone criticizes him for that. But I think, yeah, you're right. I think it's just because Joe Rogan is just so established.
We were speaking like people that could be UFC champion, and then I would, on a personal level, I would love to see Dominic Cruz be champion again. I know realistically probably won't happen.
Yeah, it's difficult as well. Obviously, the bantamweight division, you've got the likes of Petr Yan looking just so good. I mean, I think he's going to quite comfortably beat Sterling when they fight in a few months. However, Dominic Cruz is difficult because he looked good against Munoz, but there was also that moment in the first round where it looked like he got dropped. And he clearly has a few areas in his game that right now I think could be exploited by the likes of Munoz, what's his name, Petr Yan, potentially even Aljamain Sterling, Corey Sandhagen, and TJ Dillashaw. So yeah, I mean, I would love to see Dominic Cruz as champion. I mean, he's one of those veteran champions going back to the top. But I don't know how likely that is to happen in the near future. And obviously, how old is Dominic Cruz? He's getting quite old as well.
He's like 36.
Yeah, so exactly 36. Yeah. So if people like him, and I don't see him becoming champion really. I'd love to, and like Masvidal, who's a similar age. It's difficult, but I mean, if Glover Teixeira can prove that you can be, a champion at any age, then why not?
I personally think all the injury that Dominic Cruz has had over the years has really affected his career, if you know what I mean, of course. And it's just a real shame that we never really got to see a Dominic Cruz title reign, because I think if he would have stayed injury free, he would have been champion for a number of years.
I completely agree. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. Yeah, that's right.
And obviously, I think by the time he came back from, well, he, by the time he was ready to go, like properly, obviously we had Cody Garbrandt and obviously
TJ.
the DJ and just fighters like that.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously Henry Cejudo as well.
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, just to show a couple more things and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, no worries.
So over the last couple of weeks, I've been watching some of the best moments of the Ultimate Fighter, like the season, like the seasons. Have you ever watched the Ultimate Fighter? And if you have, what was your best season?
Okay, so I've watched 2 series of The Ultimate Fighter. I've also watched all the best moments on YouTube and stuff like that. And as I said before, I came into the UFC back in 2018 when I became a real big fan. So obviously before that, I didn't watch it. So the 2 series that I've watched was the most recent one, Volkanovski versus Ortega. I thought that was really good. But I think my favorite one was another one that I watched. Me and my girlfriend actually sat and watched all of it. Was the Ultimate Fighter 20 when we crowned the strawweight champion, where you had the likes of Esparza and Rose and who else was on there? Felice Herrig and Angela Hill. I thought that was a really good season. They're the only 2 that I've watched, but of the 2, that was my favorite.
I had started watching it like that point. I watched up until season 10 with
Rampage
and Richard Evans.
Oh, was that when what's his name? Kimbo was in there. Kimbo Slice.
Yeah.
Yes, I've seen bits of that. I love Kimbo, man. What a guy.
And the reason why that is one of my favourites, I don't think it's the best season. The reason why it's one of my favourites is because of the back and forth between Rampage and between the coaches.
Yeah. Was that the one where Quinton, when he broke the door?
Yeah.
That's such a funny moment. He just smashes the door to fucking pieces. I fucking love that, bro. Quinton is such a great fighter, great personality.
I think he would be a good podcaster, right?
Yeah. He did one recently with Ariel, and I know him and Ariel, like, they've always had that funny sort of discourse between each other where he always wound up Ariel and stuff. And yeah, I think he would be great for a paying game, but yeah, potentially at some point.
Who knows? I mean, Brian has such an audience. Who knows? Maybe one day somebody will see Brian stuff. That's work with Rampage, and then they might say, okay, that's what we need to go on to promote such and such. Who knows?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I'm constantly surprised at the people that we're able to get on. I mean, obviously with Ricky Gervais and Tyson Fury, people like that, and like just having Louis Theroux in the studio the other day for me was like a mind fuck. It was like, I can't believe I'm in the same room as Louis Theroux. Like I just shook hands with Louis Theroux. You know what I mean? So I'm always surprised at the guests that Brian's able to get on, and we've got some big names. I can't say anything because nothing's confirmed right now, but we do have some big names of that that level, I guess, coming this year.
I think the best season when it comes to actual fighting is like I obviously season one. We get to see people like Forrest Griffino, people like people that
was it Stephen Bonner that he fought in the final?
Yeah.
I saw that fight. Yeah.
And obviously that was a war, and that saved the UFC, at least the Ultimate Fighter. But before that fight, they did not even see it. I can't remember whether they did have season 2, or whether they did, and whether it was less.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
I can't
Anyway,
remember. Yeah.
anyway, the point is that fight really elevated the UFC to another level.
Definitely. I think also Dana said before the Ultimate Fighter as a series saved the UFC because before that, the people were the investors were they weren't able to get the I guess the sales and stuff because the terrestrial television wasn't taking the UFC. It was getting blacklisted by the likes of like politicians in the US. It was like John McCain and said it was basically human cockfighting and things like that. So it was
Yeah.
being pushed as this sort of controversial thing that should be sort of like banished. Whereas the Ultimate Fighter made people realize, no, these are great personalities. That these are elite level martial artists. We should adopt this into the mainstream. So yeah, it did save the UFC.
And obviously, there's been a lot today that about their legacy of the Ultimate Fighter, and the one that really surprised me was Lick. Obviously, well, not obviously, I did not watch the Ultimate Fighter live when it was happening. Over the years, I've come back and rewatched some of the old
Series.
seasons, and season 5. I was really surprised that late Diaz was on there.
I know. I saw a clip from that the other day where he's in the house and someone wrote like Nate something about Nate on the wall. Isn't that the one where like, they go in?
I like where he wasn't directly at night. It was that T
Oh,
back.
that was it. They wrote something about Team Colbert, and then he gets his shirt off and he's like starts trying to fight there. Like Nate Diaz is like just he'll fight you wherever, whenever. Yeah.
And he still had change.
Yeah, he still is, and honestly, he's still a big star. And I think they're actually planning Dustin Poirier versus Nate Diaz for this year, which I think will be a good fight.
I don't mean I need the Ultimate Fighter nowadays, because obviously they have the Dana White.
Contender series, yeah.
Yeah, because they have that, they don't really need the Ultimate Fighter. I do think. Well, I like it to be coming back because they've already said it is. I don't think they need it.
Well, it already came out last year with Volkanovski and Ortega, but it wasn't that exciting of a series. I mean, like what would have saved it this year if you really wanted to make a banger series would have been Masvidal, Covington as coaches. They need two like big personalities as coaches, but that fight's happening in March, so the likelihood of them being coaches now is like they can't, they won't be.
I I I I would love to see the end of the coach. I don't think he would be very good, but I think it would be good as a series.
Yeah, no, it would be. Yeah, who would it be? Who would he the coach? Him and Dustin. Actually, they could do that. Nate Diaz and Dustin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think the most underrated coach was definitely Brock Lesnar.
yeah. Obviously overlooked, wasn't he? But I mean, he was a heavyweight champion, so
So my last question is, what what would be the highlight? What would be the highlight of your what would be the highlight of your career or life so far?
oh, my career or life. Oh my gosh. Uh, oh my gosh, man. This is a difficult question. Career or life? I think, right. So the highlight of my life, if we're going to talk about that, would probably be moving to London. And because it like triggered so many things for me. Obviously, when I was in Blackpool and I was going to move to London, a lot of people tried to talk me out of it. Well, not tried to talk me out of it, but I'd say, "Oh, I'm moving to London for uni," and people would go, "Expensive like that." And you know what I mean? It was always this idea of it's too expensive to live in London. It's too crazy. It's so different. And it was a big risk. So moving to London was a highlight for me because it opened up so many opportunities. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now, living where I'm living now if it wasn't for that. The highlight of my career, though, oh yeah, I'm just gonna have to say the KSI Logan Paul 2-1 fight. So I went. This is there may be a good story, may not. So KSI Joe Weller, I went to that fight, but at that point I didn't know Brian or anyone like that. So I went just as a fan, and I had a friend who I worked with at the time who was in VIP, and I was so desperate to get into like the VIP party and stuff afterwards, but I couldn't get in. So I was on the DLR home, and I had to travel like all across London because I live so far away. And I'm saying to a mate of mine, I was like, no matter what happens, if they do like another fight, I'm gonna get into the VIP and I'm gonna like be like ringside, and I'm gonna bring you down and stuff like that. Fast forward a few years, obviously I started working with Brian. KSI Logan Paul happens. Brian gets me ringside, me, my girlfriend ringside, and then my mate who I told that to, I ended up getting him not in VIP but ringside tickets that I had bought previously. So everything came to pass, and that night was incredible. I mean, watching, obviously it was a draw, but the energy in that room, we all got suited and booted. Afterwards, we had the after party at KSI's after party and stuff. That's the highlight of my career. I just love the opportunities and the experiences that I get as an extension of working with Brian. That we had the Poker Stars thing recently. I love the things where we actually get to go and see the fans and see the people that watch our content, because everyone's just names and letters on a screen, but when you get to see and speak to these people in person, it's a whole different experience. So anything that involves doing that is my highlight. Yeah.
So thank you for coming on, mate. Before we end it, I just wanted to say thank you for putting me on to news all the
Oh yeah. Obviously, that it wasn't just me that was responsible for that. Obviously, Lawrence was because Lawrence was the first person to go on your podcast, so that's how you came into sort of our sphere of understanding, because like we knew you through the Lawrence podcast. But no, honestly, what you're doing right now on your channel, you're smashing it. You're constantly uploading videos and stuff, and great content, and yeah, you're just going up and beyond.
And before, I can't remember whether you already said this, but what is your prediction for the main event of UFC 270?
My prediction is Cyril Garner is going to outclass Ngannou, and potentially will take him down and submit him and or stop him. So I'm going to go third round, Cyril Garner.
I want Ngannou, but if I'm being honest, I do think it will be Cyril Garner, and I'm predicting second round by submission.
Second round. Okay, I guess we'll see. Yeah, honestly, it's been a pleasure. I've had a great chat with you. How long have we been going for? Does it say?
No, it doesn't say. I think it's been over 2 hours.
Yeah, I've had such a great time chatting to you, bro. Honestly, I think we should do another one at some point. Maybe after like a UFC event, we could speak about that or something.
Yeah, and I get people to speak about events anyway. Like if I know we both like something, I often get people on to talk about it. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, it's been I've had a great time.
So thank you for watching, everybody, and have a good day. And thank you for the support.